Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tonight Show podcast for today, the 30th of January, live on across YouTube tonight. I'm your presenter, Charlie Tyson. Joining me tonight is my co-presenter and also analyst tonight, Zach Chambers, for all the latest news. Hello, Zach.
Hello, Charlie. Hello, mate.
Right, we're going to do the show a little bit differently with the format. We're going to change the format up a little bit, and I feel like I want to make this more of a news show and have us review the big stories of the week and also do some other things that kind of have, I suppose, like radio style influences, like radio style segments, discussions, questions, open questions, on the week stories. So we're going to start off with the big stories of the week. Now, most of it tonight is from America, and there has been some very upsetting news from the United States, and President Trump has just been speaking whilst this has all been going on. There has been a deadly Washington, D.C. plane crash tonight or today, from what we've reported. Donald Trump, the US president, has made a statement. According to the reports, the National Transportation Board, Safety Board, the NTSB, says they're investigating multiple factors that caused the fatal crash between a commercial airplane and a military helicopter in Washington, D.C. A preliminary report will be issued after 30 days, with NTSB officials saying they have needed a lot of information, need some to clarify. No flight data recorders, also known as black boxes. Yes, not those that are fitted on cars for insurance purposes. That's on planes, this one. Investigators from the scene, it's just recorded some data. They've not received black boxes, have yet to be recovered from the scene. The investigators said President Trump earlier offered his condolences, saying, "Our heart's been shattered by the incident." It actually happened Wednesday night, apparently. So, yeah, it actually happened the night before. I didn't even know this. Wow. Trump blamed diversity rules under his predecessor, saying he believed the people hired for air traffic control roles were not always qualified, but not offered evidence for that as well. Zach, what do you make to obviously the events in America? We're going to come on to another story in a minute regarding another senior politician in America. But obviously, your thoughts. What's your assessment on this? And obviously, our thoughts are with all those that have lost loved ones in this.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's important to note that my thoughts are also with those loved ones who unfortunately lost members of their family in this very, very sad and very awful plane crash that has happened in Washington, D.C., near Ronald Reagan's airport on Wednesday evening. As we understand it at the moment, the plane that crashed into a military plane, helicopter, it carried 64 passengers and the crew with it, and it crashed into the Potomac River. The helicopter had 3 people on board as well. There looks to be like figure skaters from the US and Russia were on board this plane. According to officials from the US Figure Skating Club and a club in Boston, authorities have been obviously trying over the night to search for any people that bodies that can be found. They are obviously the priority at first was to try and get people out and make sure they survived, but 64 were on board that plane, and I'm afraid the presumption is none of them have made out alive. So it's a very, very severe incident that has happened last night in Washington, D.C. As well. We don't know what the cause was for this incident. We don't know what was any motivations, what happened, was it an accident, what happened, who's responsible and everything as well. But yeah, we don't know what's happened yet, but we all know that none of the people that were on board that passenger plane survived. And now it's going to be the case of finding and recovering all the bodies that can be found in the river, which has been freezing conditions as well. And yeah, it's really horrible. There's no black boxes that's been recovered yet as well. And yeah, now, as you mentioned today, Charlie, the president has been speaking for what I thought was an absolute disgraceful press conference. And I say disgraceful because he started out fine, and talking about respect to the families and the fact that we're all together and we shouldn't be politicizing this. And yet he did completely opposite later on, blaming, and I kid you not, he speculated that it's possible that diversity, inclusion, and equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion was the reason why it was part of the responsibility for the plane crash. There's just no evidence for this kind of bat crazy theory that President Trump has decided to come out with. It feels like we cannot get through a serious event without it being weaponized, politicized, blamed on something that's not being actually being blamed on. And yeah, it's just a really miserable press conference from President Trump. We've had officials today, obviously in normal circumstances, other officials like the Mayor of Browns, DC, the fire chief, all give out separate briefings, and where they've answered as much as they can, and they've done it completely normally without politicization as well. But yeah, it was a dreadful press conference. What we all know is that the reporting, only reporting what we should need to know about this thing that's come out, is that according to agencies, that there wasn't appeared to be normal activity within the control room so far, within the actual control when the incident happened. The helicopter we saw on the footage looked low as well. There's only one controller was working at the two tower positions as well. The source describes the setup, which is one person handling both local and helicopter traffic, as not uncommon. But he said it was not normal for the time of day and the volume of traffic. The Reagan National Control has 85% staffed, according to sources, as well. So that's one thing to look out for. I think what happened there, but we don't actually know. And I feel like, Charlie, it feels really bad. This is all just being politicized when we need to get to what we need to do. What needs to happen is the facts need to be done. We cannot be going around blaming diversity and people who are not, according to the president, mentally capable of doing a job. It's not that. It's their competence. Was there a lack of confidence? Not because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but because of the actions they took. What mistakes were made on behalf of the control room? Did the pilot make an error? Was there failings on their part? I think that what needs to be done, not this DEI nonsense and Democrats rescinding executive orders and all that sort of thing. Not Obama, not Pete Buttigieg, not Biden. It's not about them. It's about the families, and they want to know the answers of this plane crash.
Well, this is what he had to say today during the White House briefing.
You had a helicopter that had the ability to stop. I have helicopters. You can stop a helicopter very quickly. It had the ability to go up or down. It had the ability to turn. And the turn it made was not the correct turn, obviously. And it did somewhat the opposite of what it was told. You could have slowed down the helicopter substantially. You could have stopped the helicopter. You could have gone up. You could have gone down. You could have gone straight up, straight down. You could have turned. You could have done a million different maneuvers. They shouldn't have been at the same height, because if it was at the same height, you could have gone under it or over it, and nobody realized, or they didn't say that it's at the same height. At the same height, it still wouldn't have been great, but you would have missed it by quite a bit. could have been 1,000 feet higher. It could have been 200 feet lower. But it was exactly at the same height, and somebody should have been able to point that out. Get a helicopter.
That's what President Trump had to say today about the crash in America, the aviation accident that happened today as well. More on that later on. And Zach, moving on now to the next story. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been, I think, having a Senate hearing, or a court hearing or Senate hearing, I think, over his potential appointment as U.S. Secretary of State for Health, I think. It's been an interesting hearing, hasn't it?
I think it's been a bit chaotic, his hearing today. I mean, he's had 2 days of hearings, and yeah, it's not exactly, I have to say, gone exactly smoothly. Just listening to it, he struggled to provide clear answers for some things as well. He dodged direct questions whether he still believes vaccines cause autism, despite extensive scientific evidence that says it don't. When pressed by Bernie Sanders saying that showing COVID-19 vaccine saved millions of lives, Kennedy said they don't have a good surveillance system. I don't think anyone can say that. I mean, of course people can say that, because there's no doubt that COVID vaccines have saved lives. I mean, yes, there's been the odd side issue now and then, but it's on the very rarest of cases that there has been some issues as well. And he's also, obviously, throughout his time, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has raised conspiracy theories about measles, other types of vaccines as well. When, you know, it's been a very difficult hearing for him. You know, I don't think he's the right person to lead it, because he's been a well-known conspiracy theorist as well, and it's been a bit of a dreadful listen to in terms of the stuff that he said as well, and the arguments that he's had. He's even had arguments with Republican senators during the hearing as well. So yeah, it's been a very difficult hearing, I feel, for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm not sure necessarily that he's going to have the numbers to as well. Bill Cassidy, one of the people, one of the key Republicans that is critical to confirming nominations, said he was struggling with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be next senator of Department of Health and Human Services as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. He also blamed the mistrust in the government for the not COVID-19 booster uptake as well, and he also sparred Bernie Sanders over corruption in the health industry as well. So yeah, he also defended and founded claims that black people should have a different vaccine schedule as well, which was pretty appalling, and certainly as well very negative remarks overall. So I think he's going to have a little bit of a struggle here, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. If some senators like Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski, or even Bill Cassidy for this instance, don't come around. And as you mentioned, and we saw now, not only Robert F. Kennedy Jr. today, but we also had very controversial pick, Kash Patel for FBI director, the one that came up with a load of conspiracy theories about January 6th. And then we had Tulsi Gabbard today, the Syrian-loving Russian spy agent, in my view, who also had a difficult hearing as well. So yeah, difficult hearings for all three of them today, I feel. And it'll be very interesting to see if they do get enough Republican support to be able to be confirmed.
They're the three people there that have been giving the hearing. I mean, what is the point? I mean, let's say, what's the point? Like, is this how you get elected into government, by having a Senate hearing? I don't.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. The UK don't have that. I mean, we've not had people being given a hearing on something and get elected in to be a member of the government. Is that like, oh, we're gonna? I mean, it's interesting. I mean, the hearing's obviously taking place, and you know, obviously these are potential going to be members of Trump's administration. I don't think it's still been fully decided yet what's going to happen. But comment down below, guys, what you think, because I mean, this has been developing over the last few days, and America's definitely been, I'd say, the hot take of the most of the news this week regarding politics and stuff. So obviously, all my thoughts with all those that were died in that horrible aviation accident. So yeah, very interesting news there. Moving on now to some more news. I'm going to go to the UK now and talk about some news regarding, well, this news is interesting, okay? And I want to talk about it because UK politicians, by the way, there's a huge rally at the weekend. I thought I'd highlight that. And a massive freedom rally is taking place on Saturday. I know that a load of people are going to probably go and protest against Tommy Robinson's release on Saturday. It's just a freedom rally. I think Andrew Bridgen I don't know who's going to be going. I think Andrew Bridgen said he's potentially going to be going, and could all be all that. Now, the one thing that has been on everyone's mind this week in the UK has been immigration, specifically illegal immigration. Now, in America, Donald Trump has announced a huge amount of mass deportations, sending immigrants to Guantanamo Bay, from what I understand, and other countries. Colombia finally had an approval. We had, I think, the World Economic Forum the other week as well. This has been dominating a lot of things. Immigration. Smash the gangs. Smash the gangs, or are they not stopping the boats? They're letting more in. Reform UK have been very critical this week of Labour on this. Obviously, lots of people have. Some people have been calling for mass deportations, sending illegal migrants back. Now, this week, Priti Patel got asked a question, and she had to try and, justify the Tories' failure on immigration in an interview. It's a tricky one to unpick. I mean, Zach, what's your takeaway from this illegal immigration news this week? Because obviously Conservatives, they definitely lost control of the borders and let thousands of illegal immigrants in. And obviously, Labour have been pressed on this as well. And also there's been news on America over this as well, with the mass deportations away from the weekend in the UK.
Yeah, and I have to say, Priti Patel is probably my plank of the week for me as well, because of today's very bizarre comments, where she argued that the 1.2 million migrants who arrived legally under the Tories in 1 year were all of them were the brightest and the best. 1.2 million migration being the brightest and the best, whilst migrations is at a record high, and the fact they wanted to push it below, but somehow Priti Patel went on Harry Cole and never mind the ballots, and acted like it was a celebration today, as well, and defended that record, and because it's legal migration, it's the brightest and the best. That's a wow comment, and that is generally a comment that is going to be Farage laughing his way through the ropes, really, because it's an astonishing comment that Priti Patel decided to give to Harry Cole, and it's almost like it's something to be proud about. Well, the record of the government before, Labour, between 2019 and 2024 was nothing to be proud about. It was Brexit made the problem worse. We did have COVID, but then we had, obviously, after COVID, record amount of people coming over the border and into the country, legally and illegally, for that sake. And, yeah, it's really something that Conservatives, who are supposed to be the party of cutting this net migration, are somehow decided to go full on left wing and celebrate it all. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm not saying that some of these people in the 1.2 million weren't the brightest and the best, because some of them probably were. But to imply all of them were, well, that was a very, very ill-judged and ill-thought-out comment from Priti Patel today. And yeah, and she had to go on social media to clarify her comments, which is a complete, when you're having to clarify comments, it's not looking good for you, and you've done something completely wrong there in statements that he said. So yeah, very bad time for Priti Patel today, and very poor comments as well.
I have to say, Zach, I am going to put my plank of the week down as the same as yours, I think, because, you know, whether you agree with both sides of the argument and you say, oh, they let, you know, both of the governments, okay, in my opinion, have to get a grip on this. But for Priti Patel to say that, and she was the Home Secretary as well during that time, she had a huge responsibility to play for this. I find absolutely crazy, and I think it's going to make the Conservatives a laughing stock come the next election. Certainly coming up to local elections in May, when you think about the fact that this could cost you votes. The messaging, the messaging to your voters is, we want, well, as a Conservative, you want low tax, high growth, low immigration, low illegal immigration, that's what you want. You don't want loads of people coming across. Maybe better off than none come across the channel. It's impossible to get zero, but limiting illegal immigration is big. We definitely need to do that. But to celebrate a record like that, I mean, it's liberal. I'm sorry. I think that even Labour would be finding it. Do you know what? I think the Labour Party will love this comment that Priti Patel has said. And I think definitely Reform UK will, because this will help with UK in the polls completely. I mean, Reform UK are going to get a load of votes off this. And Nigel Farage is definitely going to get a lot of votes over this now, I think, because the fact is, Zach, is that, I mean, a lot of channels over the last couple of years have covered this crisis. I know some channels, right-leaning channels, have, and some other channels have not been covering this, illegal immigration. But the truth is now, with record numbers crossing every year, like over the last couple of years, and a need for a rethink on strategy. I mean, the ECHR has been up for debate the last few weeks and the last couple of months in Parliament. Do you think that a rethink is needed on the strategy?
Look, I don't think the ECHR it will make too much of a difference. In fact, leaving the ECHR is have more counterproductive ways than actually staying in it. And look, obviously the Conservatives do need to rethink their migration strategy and immigration, illegal and legal migration strategy, because overall, they've all talked about the words, and yet it's been complete opposite with them. Their record is just completely ugly and very counterproductive, and they are part of the problem, I'm afraid, no matter how much tough words they talk. So yeah, they do need to show that they can be trusted in immigration, but how can they when they've left the records that they have done? It's going to be a very long ride for them, I think, on this topic, and for now they're going to have very little credibility, I think, until they can show that they can be trusted in immigration again.
Well, that's all of that. That's all the main segment done there. Now it's time for my new segment, which is going to be called Cross Question. Now, I really want to introduce this because I'm going to ask a question about something that happened in the news this week. And I feel like it's important that we clarify this. And I feel like, having a debate, not a debate, but having a important discussion about something that happened in the news this week is important. And I think, I think it's something LBC do, where they have a few guests on and you ask the questions about strategy, stuff like that. But let's go on to a couple of news stories and clarify. I think there can be anything. There can be sport. There can be, the first one on the Cross Question this week is, I'm going to link it to the sport, actually. Now, we had the Premier League results last week. And my cross question for this week is one of them. Should Lewis... We're going to be talking quickly about how a red card was given at the weekend. Now, I want to confirm, okay, that obviously we're going to go through the results. Probably we might as well tie it in with the football as well and go over that. In fact, the football news over last weekend was interesting. We had a mixture of results in the Premier League. Obviously, Tottenham lost against Leicester last weekend, which means Ange Postecoglou, on the brink of probably being sacked very soon. Obviously, 5-0 Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth thrashing Nottingham Forest, blimey, 5-0. Everton, Brighton, 1-0. Liverpool, Ipswich, 4-1. Liverpool, Southampton lost 3-1 against Newcastle. Arsenal won at Wolverhampton Wanderers 1-0, and Chelsea lost against Man City. But obviously, that was the match that saw the red card for Lewis Skelly, who apparently the red card's been completely criticised by loads of pundits. They're saying that it was unfair. Even I think it was Anthony Taylor who was refereeing the match.
Michael Oliver
last weekend. Now, Zach, obviously we'll tie this in with the football, but what was your assessment on obviously the football results last weekend and also that controversial red card in the Arsenal match against Wolves on the other weekend in the football?
Yeah, let's go through the results first of all. There was the big game of the weekend. City-Chelsea was a 3-1 win for City. It looked like I've got back on form again. Chelsea's starting to struggle a little bit now. I think over the last couple of matches, they've been lacking a little bit, and I don't know if it's a manager mid-season dip or whatever. But no, I don't know. They've not been good recently. Newcastle 3-1 over Southampton. Liverpool continue their flying form and remain top of the table 4-1 over Ipswich. Everton defeating Brighton. Good start under Moyes, 1-0 victory as well. Nottingham Forest, who have been flying high, have sunk to a bit of a disappointment over the weekend. A 5-0 loss, a very, very brutal 5-0 loss. All good progress. Got a little bit bad there. Against Bournemouth, who also is doing very well in this weekend as well. And I should mention there's other, that was the Saturday results, and the Sunday results follows right now if I get it up on my thing. So there was 4 matches on Sunday with Leicester defeating Tottenham, who get battered everywhere they go still. Big win for Leicester City, move out of the relegation zone with that and take Wolves and back into it as well. Brentford beating Crystal Palace 2-1. Villa drawing 1-1 with West Ham, and Man United getting a win over Fulham on that one as well. But the big question is, should have been a red card for Miles Lewis Skelly during the Wolves match, which was refereed by Michael Oliver, not Anthony Taylor on that one.
Michael Oliver, yeah, that was the one
Michael Oliver. Should have been a red card. Here's my thoughts. Absolutely not. It was nowhere near a red card at all. He does kick the feet. There's no denial of a goal scoring opportunity because the goal is way, way far away. First of all, and although he did get kicked, then the way he got kicked, it was simply not a red card. I'm sorry to say, I have seen worse for stuff that I've seen. There's the red. You could see the kick there for Miles Skelly Lewis. If you go out, there it is. There's the kick on the foot. That in no way is a red card whatsoever. It is yellow at best. You could say it's reckless, but it's definitely not a red card. And I'm glad to see it did get overturned on appeal, but I really do not understand how that was even a red card at all. It was utterly ridiculous decision. And Michael Oliver refereeing was dreadful that day as well. I don't like the abuse, however, he got on social media after that. I mean, I know passions run high, and you can commit conspiracy whatsoever, whether he hates Arsenal because he's got 7 red cards under his when he's up refereed Arsenal matches, he's given out 7 red cards compared to a lot more compared to a few other teams. But my goodness me, the abuse he got was not deserved as well, and was appalling. And yeah, I know he's going to be on refereeing duties again soon, but it was a generally really, really bad bit of abuse he got. I don't defend his refereeing though on Saturday, because that was really subpar, awful by standards as well. But yeah, really was not a really good result at all for Michael Oliver in terms of the results, in terms of the performance that he gave as well. So no, it was definitely not a red card. I'm glad to see it was overturned. At worst, it's a yellow at worst for me, and certainly not a red card at all. May I move on, Charlie, whilst we're talking about sports news, to European football this week, if that's okay? Because we've had results from the Champions League and Europa League. All 18 games were playing on the same time as the last match day. And yeah, the good news is all British teams have made it through some form or another. Liverpool, let's start with Liverpool. They're already through, but they lost 3-2 to PSV. Obviously, they'll be disappointed with that result, but it was a dead rubber anyway, and they still finished first in the standings. Arsenal won 2-1 against Girona. Again, it was pretty much a dead rubber, that one. Arsenal could have technically been mathematically knocked out, but they wouldn't need to lose by more than 6 goals. Let's move on to Man City, because massive result for them. They won 3-1 against Club Brugge after going 1-0 down in the first half. That means they're through to the knockout phases of the Champions League as well. And Arsenal won 3-0. Good result for them. They're through on that one as well. And finally, Aston Villa against Celtic, the Battle of Britain. Aston Villa managing a massive victory to win 4-2, but go straight to the last 16 rather than face a knockout phase as well. It was a big result. Celtic lost, are through to knockouts as well. But for Manchester City, we know they're going to face one of Real Madrid or Bayern Munich in the draws tomorrow. It is a very big tie for them, and they're going to have to step up their performance if they're going to be able to get through in that one. But yeah, City, Real Madrid or Bayern Munich is a big tie for them in the knockout stage as well. And the Europa League as well. I just want to report on that because it's all over. And Manchester United are through, and so are Tottenham Hotspur as well, with a 3-0 victory over IS. Well, they're both through to the last 16. Manchester United, a 2-0 victory over FCSB, and Tottenham won 3-0 as well. And what it means in the table as it stands, in a major development as well, Rangers have also won tonight, and they are also through to the last 16 as well, in a big result for Rangers. Now, it was unlikely that Rangers were going to get through, but yeah, they've won. They've won tonight against Union St. Gilles, and they're through to the last 16. So all British teams are through to the last round of 16, Charlie. In the Europa League and the Champions League. So a brilliant result for all the teams there as well. But yeah.
It looks confusing, that new format, doesn't it? All the group stage played, and then you have all the teams play each other. And yeah, it looks confusing. I'm not going to lie. But certainly, yeah, it is confusing. But anyway, that's that. I'm just going to I'll run over quickly as well. I know my uncle and Chris, I know he's watching the show tonight. If he probably is. Shout out to my Uncle Chris there as well. I know he likes talking about football and all the football news as well. I will run over the Premier League matches for the weekend just quickly as well. I'll quickly run through that. So in terms of the matches on the weekend, Forest play Brighton at 12:30. Then the pick of the 3 o'clocks for me: Newcastle, Fulham, Everton, Leicester, Ipswich, Southampton, Wolves, Villa, Bournemouth, Liverpool. And then Sunday, We have Man U Crystal Palace, Brentford against a struggling Tottenham. Is Ange Postecoglou, or is Ange under pressure? Certainly is. You know, they need a result. Arsenal, Man City, the big match, 4:00 or 4:30, sorry, on the Sunday. A huge tie in that one between two clubs that certainly Man City on coming back on form. Arsenal certainly needing to calibrate with lots of injuries as well. Chelsea will play West Ham on the Monday at 8:00. Big match for both clubs. And Everton will play Liverpool on the 12th of February. I think that's that was one of the postponed matches. My apologies. That's at 7:30, and then the next lot of matches will not be till the middle of February. Obviously, it is February this weekend, just to confirm. So, yes, this weekend is officially February. It's a new month, and yes, that will mean the new lot of matches will be played over that as well. Anyway, now it's time to get back to news. I want to quickly just highlight some motorsport news whilst we're here. I think also as well, Formula One, not really, well, apart from Andrea Kimi Anthony passing his driving test, obviously the season launch is coming up very soon, next month. Really not really much news to talk about in F1, apart from just a few drivers talking about their own lives and insiders and stuff. So I thought maybe should we go for a wider motorsport look, I suppose. I thought I would come on to that now. Let's talk quickly. Oh, actually, there has been some news this week. I want to talk about this. Johnny Herbert has now been sacked by the FIA as I think it was as a marshal or something. In fact, sending Max Verstappen a message. He was sacked after parting ways with the governing body. I think he was a steward. He was part of the stewarding races due to conflicting comments. Apparently to do with biasing. Zach, what do you make to this news?
I don't know what he has done to cause a bit of a conflict of interest in his role, but clearly he's got something, and he's obviously can't help being a pundit, as well as a driver steward for whatever reason. So it's clear that's affected his ability to be a steward properly, and yet he's now no longer on the list of driver stewards at the moment. In F1. So yeah, I can understand why he's not in the stewards room anymore. I think if you've got a conflict of interest, you shouldn't be in there as well, showing potential favoritism to drivers. So yeah, understandably he's out of that role as well. The other bit of F1 news I want to mention as well is that Lewis Hamilton went on his first Ferrari runs this week as well, alongside Charles Leclerc, private testing. There was an incident. I think, Lewis clearly enjoyed the car, but obviously there was one. He did have a little incident in one of the private test days as well. I understand he'd crashed at one of them, but I think he's enjoyed it. Although he's had an incident, I think Ferrari really downplayed it as well. So it doesn't sound like it was something that was too big as well. But yeah, we saw Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari suit for the first time, and in the car, based on photos that we saw as well. As you mentioned as well, we had Kimi Anthony passing his driving test as well. So yeah, a bit of an interesting one as well. But yeah, congratulations to Kimi on that one, and obviously Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari for the first time as well.
There's not really the off season tends to be quiet. That's the whole point of an off season, but. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, NASCAR comes up very, very soon as well. They're back, I think, on the 20th or the 16th of Feb. A couple of weeks' time, NASCAR will be, obviously, Daytona 500 will be the first, probably huge event of the motorsport season, really. For, obviously, America, for NASCAR as well. And obviously, IndyCar back in very soon as well. Formula One, obviously, back in Australia. there's going to be a lot of questions about, the teams, line up. So it's going to be a lot of chat, not say a lot of chat, but a lot of developments throughout the season as well. So I'm very interested to see how that gets on. Now, I'm going to go on to another. We're going to go Conversation Street now, and talk about some things. I feel like this is the part of the show where we delve into other things that are not related with the news or general questions that our listeners can get involved in. Please comment down below. The Tonight Show podcast, me and Zach, live on YouTube, as always. Now, I want to talk quickly about some news regarding cars now, and not just cars, but I want to talk about driving tests a little bit, because many areas across the country have got different areas of driving. You go to different driving tests, okay, can vary area by area. You go to one area, it's easier than the other. Okay, you go to, I'd say, Basildon, you mostly got dual carriageways, or roundabouts. You go Chelmsford, you got traffic lights, roundabouts. Southend, you've got one-way streets, roundabouts. Everything like that. Driving tests are definitely the main critical thing. Whether you're taking your test in Toyota CHR, Renault Clio, or any car that, or even your own car, it's important. I want to talk to you quickly today about some new driving test rules that are coming out by the DVSA, which have announced these rules. And these rules are going to be brand new for driving tests. And I thought I'd suggest this because it's actually really important. When you're doing your driving test, you want to know this. So, under the plans is to help reduce waiting times. Now, the claimed average waiting time for a test is 21 weeks, under 5 months. The change is part of a 7-step plan improvements to the current system. Now, the DVSA also announced it will be recruiting 450 driving examiners across the country to improve availability of tests. Figures for the Department for Transport, so DFT, show that indicate number of test record levels of 12 months, ending of March, were 1.9 billion, and they claim that the period would rise from 3 to 10 working days. It's to discourage late cancellation. Yes, it's an interesting move. So obviously, driving tests really important. This is a big chance for people to go out on the road independently. And many areas fluctuate between difficulties. Some areas are easier to drive than others. You go, as I said, mentioning a few venues. What do you make to this announcement by the DVSA earlier in the month?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see some of the changes as well that they want to do to try and make sure that people pass their tests and everything as well. We know that the waiting times have been a little bit difficult over the last few years, especially COVID was a real big impact on people waiting really long to take their driving tests and the backlog as well. So yeah, obviously what the government are planning to do is to recruit more driving examiners, review and improve the rules of booking driving tests as well. Introduce tougher terms and conditions for the service drivers used to book and manage driving test as well. It's really interesting to that, and obviously consultant new policy increase the amount of time people have to wait to book another test in certain situations. So, for example, if you make serious or dangerous faults during the timing test, you have to wait further to book another test, or physically verbally assaulting the driving examiner, failing to attend the test without telling DVSA. Learner drivers can't have 10 working days before being able to book another test as well, potentially make them wait longer if needed to. The increased amount of notice you need to give to charge or cancel car driving to not losing the fee. I'm supportive of that. Explore changing the current 24-hour limit and how far ahead car driving tests can be booked. Encourage the learners drivers to better prepare for the driving test through the Ready to Pass campaign as well, and obviously reducing the waiting times. It's really important that the waiting times gets reduced as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm all with the main priority is to reduce the waiting times as well. And one of the changes as well that's been introduced is to set tougher term conditions. That this will says that the only driving instructors or businesses that employ driving instructors can use the service to book car tests as well. It to produce obviously abuse of the system as well. So yeah, I'm all for that, and it's really important that the backlog on this does get reduced certainly amount on there as well.
I think it's important, and as well as that, driving tests are so important because if people pass them first time, which I passed my test first time, thankfully, and
Yeah.
I done it in Southend. I mean, Zach, where did you do your one when you passed?
I did mine in Chelmsford, so because it was the closest to me.
Was that first or second time?
It was my first time.
First time.
Well,
wow, in Chelmsford as well. That
3 minors. I only got 3
something.
minors on my one, thankfully. So yeah, that I was pleased I passed first time because I thought it was really important that I did do that. It proves how much I was studying, doing carefully, following all the instructions and all that sort of thing as well. So yeah, I was really pleased with that.
I mean, I passed mine first time, got 8 minors in Southend. Do you know what? Like, I remember as well, the driving instructor examiner I had was very strict. Like, I thought I'd done a parallel. What manoeuvre did you do on the test?
Oh, I did a reverse park into, and then obviously you park, then you have to park up between certain areas on near a driveway or something like that. That's what I did as well. So yeah, that's one of them. I did actually get a minor for not looking my rear mirror when I started reversing. I started halfway through it rather before I reversed, but otherwise yeah, that was only one of the 3 minors I got for that.
I got the manoeuvre that I think was probably the hardest. Well, say the hardest, but the one that people dread, the parallel park. I must admit, it was a tough manoeuvre because you've got to check all around. And I must admit, I really struggled during my driving lessons. But thankfully, I was actually driving in my Fiesta. I had a little Fiesta a couple of years ago, and I drove it. And I checked my mirrors, and I thought I was too far away from the curb. I was on a residential street, but I actually passed my test first time. I honestly, it was amazing. And luckily me and Zach passed first time. Some people didn't. Some people passed second time. But it's all about learning. And I think, as well as that, the driving examiners are there for you. If you have any questions, speak to examiners. And like I said, this news is important. We want people to be out driving, especially getting independence, going to the shops, going to, the pub, or, traveling to appointments, traveling to the gym. That's just important. Traveling to even college, you're doing education. These things are important. And having a car is the most important thing. So that's why I respect driving tests, and laws are definitely important in my opinion on that as well. Meanwhile, I think tonight we are actually going to do we're going to play a song quickly, and then we're going to come back and do one more piece of advice. Tonight's going to be slightly different. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about some slightly different changes coming for the show towards the end of it. My song tonight is a song that I think you're absolutely going to rant and rave. But you're going to absolutely love this one. It is a classic garage song. I bet a lot of you love garage. You're going to love this one. I think it's a pure classic, one that all the DJs would love to play. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to play for you this track by someone called Romina Johnson and Artful Dodger. This is Moving Too Fast, an absolute classic. We'll see you in a few minutes.
All right.
Absolute classic there from Artful Dodger, Romina Johnson. Zach, what do you make of that song? Absolute garage classic.
It definitely is a garage classic, and I've heard it quite a few times actually, as well. And yeah, it's one of the original Artful Dodger classics that really gets through and really drums to the rhythm really, really well. It's thoroughly
Great clubbing
enjoyable
song, and I thought tonight, throw in a garage classic. That playlist is available on Spotify, by the way, UK Ultimate Garage Classics. I feel like definitely need to really respect culture, especially garage. So it was a huge industry coming forward in the club world. So yeah, now moving on to the final part of the show tonight, I want to talk about a show that has relaunched today. By the way, I have not seen it, but I will go into it. The Apprentice is back tonight. And it was a sales task. And yes, it's a new series. It's on for the next 12 weeks. Tim Campbell and Karen Brady alongside Lord Sugar. And yes, one unlucky candidate has already been booted out, according to the show. Now, according to this show, it was apparently a show where they had to go away, I think, and do some sales. Basically, they sent off to a foreign trip. It wasn't quite like South Africa or the Caribbean, according to this. It was a team. Galacia apparently won it. Apparently, for the first time, I believe they split the teams up and have like men and women actually not together. I think they're mixing them up. They went to a foreign trip. According to this, one team took their customers even for the other team opted for the adventure, yielded to some snaps, some Austrian torches. The Forest team only managed to sell 6 tickets at turf, while the skiing team sold older tickets at a pretty low margin, so plenty was up to do in the air before the tours began. And according to this, it looked like the candidate got fired tonight on the show. It looks like, according to this, it was Emma, who got the first candidate to be lead the process tonight. I do apologise for giving the candidate away. To anyone who's not watched it, please skip forward and not watch the show. Yeah, Zach, obviously the Apprentice relaunches tonight, and it's the first time.
Yeah, and I'm going to watch the episode a bit later because I haven't watched it yet as well. But the first episode of the series begins with Austria. They are going to the teams are running Alpine tours in Austria. They're pushing for obviously need to get the highest overall profit. The teams will sell glacier forest experiences as well. And yeah, for one team, one of the candidates, they will be fired after the first gun has been shot as well. So Austria tours this week, next week as well. Should mention it will be a new virtual pop star and music video that they're doing. So it's going to be about music next week.
Enerpac ultra flat hydraulic cylinders have a high capacity.
Before pitching it for sponsorship as well. And then one candidate, they need to record a single and produce a music video before you pitch for brand sponsorship. I don't remember there being brand sponsorship much in music videos these days. Very interesting that they want to make a sponsored music video. One candidate will be fired obviously next week as well. And I should mention that the third episode I see as well is going to be discount buying in Stratford to secure the 9 items. We always love the 9 items, don't we? As well. The 9 items that you always need to find.
Yes,
that
9
task
items.
is back on the third episode as well. But so today's ones are Austria tours. Next week is to produce creating a single and a music video for it, and the third week it's the 9 items task, involving, as I mentioned as well, discount buy and the candidates are sent to Shakespeare's birthplace, secure 9 items. That is the third episode as well coming up. I'm going to catch episode 1 later, see which tragic clown candidates we have this year, and then mixed teams this year. No men, no women gendered teams, but I'm presuming we're going to have clowns, more clowns and idiots as usual in this show.
I tell you what, I can't wait. This new format's going to be interesting, to see how it works. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how. I'm sorry I gave the candidate away, but I mean, I said to skip ahead if you've not watched it. But yeah, me and Zach will be watching the show. Certainly in the coming days, I definitely will be. I always watch The Apprentice. It's one of the only BBC shows I watch. I always watch the whole series because it's a good show to learn about business. It's learning about how to make gross profit, net profit, sales, negotiations with clients. It's a very important show to learn the key skills of young enterprise, also the key skills of business. It's important. So that's that. Moving on now to the final bit of news now. I want to quickly talk. I've been reading some of the papers. I've changed the format up for the show regarding newspaper reviews. I'm just going to pick some stories because we kind of review the stories that start the show now. One thing that I want to talk about is what has been happening with Eco Warriors again. Now, the other week, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a clip I saw on X of some appear to be vegan protesters in a Sainsbury's store holding placards up of, I don't know what it was to do with. I found it just completely cringy. And if you don't know, this was in London, by the way. I spotted this on my social media and I thought, I need to talk about this. Vegan protesters. Now, look, I don't know what to say. This was in a Sainsbury's store. Okay, it's Animal Rising. That was it. It's a Sainsbury's meat aisle that they sat in. It was a chilled meat aisle that they sat in the middle of the aisle, and the staff were like, "Well, I can't move it away." And I think there was another incident as well with Just Stop Oil, I think they had an issue as well. And it's been really interesting because obviously this week as well, we've had the news that Tesco are going to also cut 400 jobs across their retail workforce, which also ties into kind of, not, it doesn't tie into this news, but ties into retail news as well. So obviously, Zach, we'll get your reaction on the job cuts as well at Tesco. I've got to mention that earlier in the show. But what's also your assessment on both stories? Also, the activists this week causing more chaos.
Yeah, and obviously we mentioned the Sainsbury's stuff with the vegan people. I mean, come on, it's just pathetic, really. But I want to mention something as well that not only that, we've mentioned that the other time, but I want to mention something that happened this week as well. Just the return of Just Stop Oil and their antiques this week with what they've been doing. They're back to cause carnage again. This week they disrupted a West End performance of The Tempest as well. We had two Just Stop Oil activists decide to walk up to get their jumper out, the Just Stop Oil jumper out, invade the stage. Actors had to leave, and they had to be forced off as well because of Just Stop Oil deciding to stage a protest at the West End at a West End performance as well. So yeah, it was a bit ridiculous to watch as well. If you want to see what happened, obviously just type in Just Stop Oil West End as well. There was a performance of The Tempest. The crowd booed the protesters and the actors had to leave the stage. But yeah, I don't know why they're disrupting West End performances. I don't know what the relevance is of that and what they've been doing. But yeah, they've been at it again this week, Just Stop Oil. After being quiet for a while, they decided to invade a West End performance. And there it is, by the way, I should mention as well. It's a bit of a pathetic protest, really, and just really, really silly overall.
I know that. It's a bit of they're doing a production and then they come in with an orange banner.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, this is pathetic.
Yeah, I know, it is pathetic and it's ridiculous.
Well, what's the point? What's the point of protest? Have they not learnt from doing this before? Go in London, or I mean, luckily it's not on the roads. I mean, yeah, I mean all those poor people that went to the theatre are probably gonna have to get a refund now for that. But you know, like I said as well, in London, you've also got MJ the musical in the Prince Edward that's happening, and also other theatres as well. You've got other Broadway shows that happen in like Les Mis and stuff. So what if they come in and just disrupt the music, disrupt the musicals and stuff, people are going to be able to watch them. They're going to end up not being able to see it and get their tickets refunded because I probably have to cancel the whole thing. It's like, I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy. And Zach, what's your final assessment on Tesco quickly cutting the jobs?
Yeah, obviously Tesco's obviously trying to do their restructuring and all that sort of thing as well. And obviously they've decided they're cutting 400 jobs in its stores and head offices. So this is where they're cutting the roles, I should mention as well. It costs the stores and head offices simplify its business during a market more competitive than ever. It will affect managing its head office, Tesco mobile phone shops, and staff as the in-store bakeries as well. They're seeking more efficient ways of working as well. I should mention this is not the only set of job cuts this week as well. Sainsbury's recently last week announced that they were cutting 3,000 jobs and closing in-store CAF as well. Whilst yesterday it was also announced that Lloyd Banking Group is closing 136 high street branches and because they want to digitalize the brand and business a lot further as well. So yeah, lots of retail jobs cuts as well, I'm afraid, in that sector. I'm afraid as well.
Lots of job cuts coming. Please be aware if your job has been affected. Make sure that you keep an eye out because obviously these news are not good. Obviously, people that have jobs, we want to make sure everyone's in a secure job. In general, it's important. I think it's important for people to stay in jobs and definitely have some degree of certainty. That does it for the Tonight Show podcast tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next time for another edition of the show. In the meantime, from me and Zach, and being live on YouTube tonight, take care. We'll see you again next time. Goodbye.